Hi guys, today in my video I'm going to be talking about how to have a debt-free wedding. Now if you followed my channel at all, you will know that I actually had two weddings, in fact, to the same man. We got married in December of 2018. We had a traditional Scottish wedding because my husband is from Scotland, and then in April we went to Bangladesh where we had a fairly traditional Bengali wedding because my heritage is from Bangladesh. And both of those weddings were fairly fancy. I wouldn't say that they were extremely extravagant, but on the same side, I wouldn't say that they were very small. They were like mid-sized weddings, fairly decent, and they didn't cost a bundle. And I'm going to share with you my tips today as to how we managed to have good for value weddings. So my first tip is definitely to save early and save hard. Now, most couples know when they're going to get married or if they're going to be engaged. I think most couples talk about, if they're long-term couples, talk about, when they're thinking about making these big life decisions. So I had an idea that Andrew was going to propose in early 2018. So I actually started saving in 2017, actually 4 months before he proposed. And I was squirreling away money thinking that, yes, we're going to be married at the end of 2018. And we actually had a really interesting conversation because I think he thought we were going to wait a lot longer to get married, probably 2 years, but we actually ended up waiting less than a year because I actually wasn't prepared to wait that long. Because of my culture and the fact that my parents are fairly conservative, Andrew really couldn't come over and stay at my place, and we didn't have as much freedom as I would have liked to in front of them. So I definitely wanted to get married, get that done, and just go on living our lives. I don't feel restricted by my parents, but at the same time I completely understand the culture that they come from and the generation that they are, and I want to be respectful of that. So it was important to me to get married and not hang about too long. And also we met at an age where we were slightly older and we were ready to get married. So my tip would be to save early and save hard. As soon as he knew what my plans were or what I wanted to do, he also started knuckling down and we started saving for the wedding. The second point is you don't need to keep up with the Joneses. You need to have the wedding that is comfortable for you. So if you don't have the money and if you don't have the desire for a big wedding, then don't. Every wedding is beautiful. We went to my friend's wedding a couple of months before ours, and she did a very small civil ceremony and then an amazing barbecue afterwards, and it was one of the best weddings I've ever been to. Granted, I've not been to many weddings, but I had an amazing experience. There were loads of food, there was loads of drink, there was great conversation, and it was just love, 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 and it was so sweet to see her and her husband just really be taken away by that day. So nobody's going to judge you on your wedding. If you want a small wedding, if you're comfortable with a smaller wedding, and if it means that it's not going to put you in financial strain, then definitely just have a smaller wedding, and a smaller wedding is as good as a bigger wedding. Now, if you want a slightly bigger wedding and that's kind of your dream, then that's completely feasible to do as well, but you just need to shop around. And that's going to take me to my next point, which is the venues, which is basically shop around, shop around, shop around. Now, a lot of these venues do cater specifically for weddings, and when I was shopping around in Scotland, there were some really good value for money packages. Glen, the castle that I went with, they actually had a very, very basic package for people who wasn't looking to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on their wedding. So I think their most basic package started off at $3,000, and you could have 50-day guests, you could have, I think, 3 courses, several top-ups of sparkling wine, and that in itself is a really good wedding. You've got a great venue, you've got space for loads of guests, and then you could add to it and build up from there, and that's exactly what we did. Scotland is a lot cheaper than London, and I think if we were having a similar wedding in London, we'd be talking another 8 or 10 grand above what we actually spent. So do bear that in mind. The location is important, but at the same time, you don't want your guests to kind of travel all sorts of distances. So if you do a destination wedding, bear in mind that all your guests may not actually be able to afford to go where you're having the wedding, but it can be cheaper if you live in London to do it outside. Luckily for us, most of Andrew's family are in Scotland, so that wasn't even an issue. And my London crew, which was a very small contingency, they came up from London, and then obviously we took the wedding to Bangladesh as well. So it worked out fine for us. But yeah, do shop around. That's my main point. Do shop around for venues. Some of them do really, really good packages, and just be patient. You will find the perfect venue for you. Don't get carried away, because I was getting really carried away. I wanted to lock it down immediately. I'm quite quite an impatient person, but luckily we had enough viewings kind of scheduled. I'd pre-booked loads of venues to see it, and then we landed on Glen Scully, and I really appreciated the fact that they had this basic package, because it just goes to show, you know, there are reasonable venues out there. So my next point is, be prepared to make compromises. Our big compromise for having 2 weddings is that we didn't have a honeymoon. And I'll be honest, at one point I thought maybe we should have a honeymoon, and I kind of felt pressurized to keep up with the Joneses. And then both Andrew and I like fairly nice things, and we are kind of compatible in terms of where we want to spend our money, but we both have a kind of a set point which we don't like to go over. And at one point, if we did put the honeymoon on top of these 2 weddings, it would have just been silly money, and we were like, no, actually we're not going to do that. We're going to cut away the honeymoon. We're not going to have a really expensive honeymoon. And the fact is, we go away a lot. Andrew has family who live in Lanzarote and the Middle East, so every 2 years we go to the Middle East, and every year we can go like up to twice a year to Lanzarote, the Canary Islands. So it's not really as if we're suffering from not having holidays. So that was a compromise for us. So don't be afraid of making compromises, and no one's going to judge you for it. At the end of the day, it's your life and you can do exactly what you want. The next thing to do is learn some tricks of the trade. So for example, wedding cakes are really expensive. So you could buy these base level cakes and then tier them up yourself and decorate them. Or if you know anyone handy, they can decorate them for you. Marks and Spencer's also have a really great range of wedding cakes, and we were actually going to go with that. But then in Scotland, we found this really cute shop called Christine's. It's quite a well-known bakery in Airdrie, where Andrew's from, and we got our wedding cake from there, and it was really reasonable. I don't think it cost that much at all. It was like less than £100, and it fed like 60-70 people, and there was like loads of cake left over as well, because by that point everyone was just so full. But again, as I said, Scotland's like a lot cheaper, so a lot depends on where you're based. But really, I mean, you don't even have to have a wedding cake if you don't want to. You can just have cupcakes. But I mean, for me, it was pretty important to have a wedding cake, so just shop around and don't go for like a wedding cake supplier. You can find the same thing and do it up yourself. We actually made our invitations. I wanted fairly fancy invitations, and you can get like quite cheap invitations as well on Vistaprint, and they look really nice as well. And if you're not kind of crafty or handy, then that might be a good option for you. My best friend is really good with designing, and we just designed my invitations on Photoshop. Then we got them printed out, and then we cut them. And I'm going to try and insert a picture of my wedding invite, but it was a lot of work, I have to say. It was actually back-breaking work, cutting not even 60 cards. We invited 60 people on the day, and each invite had like 5 or 6 cards in them, because one of them was like order of the day, the other one was how to get there, accommodation, like there's all sorts of stuff that you need to put in for a destination wedding. But I was really pleased with the invites, and we actually got them for a fraction of the price of what it would have actually cost. Also, when it comes to wedding favors, I would definitely say keep it simple. Nobody really cares as long as they've got booze and a snack. That's all they care about. You don't need to go crazy and to do loads of different things. People just don't really care that much, and honestly it's a bit of junk for them and a bit of clutter, so I wouldn't bother like going all out and I don't know, putting in ornaments and stuff like that. I don't even know what people put in there. I saw there was a lot of crazy stuff when I was looking, but we kept it simple. We actually had shortbread that my sister baked for us, so that was really sweet of her. And my mother-in-law got all kind of like the booze and stuff. She sourced all the booze, and we just packaged it up, and everyone was really happy. And my last tip is to recognize your core non-negotiables, spend the money there, and everything else try and do on a budget. So for Andrew, it was really important that we have a band. Now a DJ is way cheaper than a band, but he wanted a band, so we had a 4-piece band, and that was pretty expensive, but it was important to him. He even got on the drums and played with the band for a bit, so he really enjoyed that, and I think it was a big hit with the crowd. For me, my dress was really important. I wanted to feel the best that I'd ever felt. And I'm actually pretty sentimental. I know some people are like, you're only going to wear it one day and you're going to sell them and stuff. I'm never going to sell my wedding dresses. I'm surprised to even be married, to be honest with you. I'm not a very, I wouldn't say I'm untraditional, but I am traditional. It's just a weird mix, and marriage was never something that I thought I would end up doing, and the fact that I have got married is pretty special for me. It just came like a surprise, a bolt out of the blue, that I'm actually embarked on this big adventure with somebody. So that's why like the wedding dress has a real meaning for me. Both my wedding dresses I'm going to keep forever. My mom actually ended up buying the wedding dress for me. I hadn't really budgeted, well, I hadn't really accounted for her to buy it for me. I'd actually budgeted for the wedding dress, so it was a lovely surprise. And everything else I got really cheap. So I got my wedding veil from JJ's house, and I also got my wedding shoes from JJ's house, and they do really good value for stuff on JJ's house. I wasn't too worried about buying the stuff because I thought, how wrong could they go with like veils? And they did an outstanding job. It's absolutely beautiful. You wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between that veil and a £100 veil, for example. And my shoes were great. I actually buy a lot more shoes from JJ's house now because of my experience with that. I bought my Bengali wedding shoes from JJ's house, and I recently bought a pair of like pumps from JJ's house as well. So I hope these tips helps you, and I hope it makes you realize that you don't have to spend a fortune on your wedding. It can be done on, you know, a fairly decent budget. We didn't go crazy, I don't think. We spent what we were comfortable spending, and that's the main point. Don't feel forced to overspend. Just spend what you're comfortable spending. Even if you have a small wedding, there's nothing wrong. I shouldn't even use the term even. There's no even about it. If you want a small wedding, have a small wedding. That's perfectly fine as well. Anyway, guys, I hope these tips and tricks helped you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!